All right, welcome to the channel. Today we're going to talk about something that happens to all project managers out there. It's when you have so much going on that it's hard for you to organize yourself, let alone organize the projects that you have to manage. This is a problem that happens to all of us, and there's a way to fix it. Have you ever heard of the phrase, physician heal thyself? Well, project managers, heal yourselves. I'm going to show you how. It's a technique used by Dwight D. Eisenhower, Stephen Covey, and others to get themselves organized. Welcome to Project Management Nation. We've all been there when you have a list that is way too long and there's not enough hours in the day and you don't know where to start. That's a really bad place if you're a project manager because it's your job to organize other people, and if you can't organize yourself, what value are you delivering to the organization? So, how are we going to solve that? Well, turns out that there are techniques out there that date back many decades ago. I was first introduced to this technique after reading Stephen R. Covey's book that included this technique. It's fantastic. I've used it in the past. I was just reminded of this technique very recently as I was looking through the Harvard Business Review and saw a great refresher article on it. Why was I looking at the Harvard Business Review? Well, that's a whole tangent that I'm going to do a separate video about keeping yourself professionally sharp, looking at the latest that's going on out in the professional world so that you can incorporate it into your project management practice. But that's for another day. Right now, we're going to talk about the technique. It turns out that there's a difference between important and urgent. Both sound kind of the same, but if you actually take urgent and important and plot them on an X and Y axis, you get a really cool looking grid that's going to help you to organize yourself. Step one of the technique is to take all of those action items that you have and list them out. Could be that it makes a very long list. For our example purpose today, we're going to put a number of them on there, and then we're going to go to the next step. Step two, also pretty simple. We're going to make a 2x2 matrix or a grid, and along the bottom, we're going to assign urgency. So we're going to say urgent, not urgent, and along the y-axis up across the top, we're going to do important and not important. That gives us the fundamental buckets that we're going to sort your list into. Step number 3 is where this technique really starts to show its power. What you do is take that list of all of those items and things that you've got to get done in a day, and then you plot them into one of the 4 quadrants. To be able to plot them into those 4 quadrants, we need to talk about what each of those quadrants really are. It makes sense that as project managers, we're going to spend most of our time working on things that are important. So let's look at the top half of that quadrant first. The quadrant that makes the most sense is the one that is both urgent and important. This is where you're probably going to spend a fair amount of your day. So from our list of important things, what would belong on this? Well, I think anything related to go-live activities. There's a certain urgency around go-live activities, and of course, they're critically important. So that belongs on the list. I believe that get-to-green activities are important. If you have a project that has gone from green to yellow or red, then you need to be thinking about how you're going to be getting that back to green, urgent and important. Responding to stakeholders. These stakeholders are the whole reason why the project exists. They have trusted you with managing that project for them. So being responsive to them in a timely manner, really important. And then responding to team issues. So team issues can fester for a long time. I believe that you should be very proactive in the way you deal with team issues because in the long term, it's going to be better for your project. So that's quadrant number 1. Number 2, let's talk about those things that are less urgent, but still very important. So these are the things that you should be scheduling. So what do you want to schedule? You want to schedule things that are like meetings that are going to be in the future. You want to do your most important planning, your schedules, your scope planning, creating your critical documents belong in there. Writing reports and doing updates. They've got to be done, but they don't always have to be done right now. And then anything to prepare for key meetings coming up would belong in that quadrant also. So now let's look across the bottom, the things that are not important. So why would we do anything that is not important? Well, because sometimes we just have to. Let's start with those things that are not important, but that are urgent. What would fall into that category? Well, a lot of your days could be filled up with interruptions. People calling you, people emailing you, people slacking you, needing a quick response. And if you don't give that response, it could hold something up. That's a distraction from getting the really meaty work done in the quadrant above it. But it needs to be done. What about process for process sake? How many times have you filled out a template or a form knowing that the people who are going to receive it aren't going to pay any attention to it? But you have to do it because that's part of the process. It's got to be done, but it's just not important. What about following up after nervous stakeholders? And what I mean by that is sometimes our stakeholders, our managers, our team members need a lot of hand-holding. That can take a lot of extra time. Again, it's urgent to do. You've got to keep the stakeholders happy, but not delivering a ton of value. And then following up after the same team members over and over again, that's really a low value type of activity, but it's something that you've got to do if you are going to move your project forward. Okay, what about the time wasters, those things that are not urgent and not important? Well, sometimes we get a lot of information in our inboxes, in our Slack, whatever it might be, that we just simply can ignore. So I know that my inbox fills up every day with a lot of things. A lot of times they're alerts that are automatically generated. Stuff like that we don't need to be paying much time and attention on. And so anything that's in this category, we want to spend as minimum amount of activity on it that we can. Process for process sake, that's also up there. If you can get around a process and it's not critical to the importance of your project, I would say do it. And then there's a lot of activities that happen throughout the day, things that you're asked to do that if you can get out of them, that's important. I would say that travel is a less important and time-wasting kind of activity. If you have to travel from office to office just because somebody wants to meet face-to-face, probably not a great use of time, but you might have to do it anyway. So those are the 4 quadrants. Hopefully you can see the power that's in this methodology by being able to take all of the things that are in your day and have a plan for them. A plan to work on the most urgent stuff and most important stuff first, and then schedule the other pieces that are really important but not urgent. That should take the bulk of your day. And then any time left over, those cracks in between, that's where you start to plan in some of these other activities. I'm hoping you found this video useful. It's so important for us as project managers to be organized ourselves before we can ever think about going out there and organizing other people. If you liked what you saw, you can learn more by reading Stephen R. Covey's book, and I'm going to put a link to that in the description, or reading the Harvard Business Review article about this, which I'm also going to put a link to in the description of this video. If you found anything about this video useful, please click subscribe. Thank you.